Good afternoon. Welcome everyone to this inaugural meeting of the Budget and Finance Advisory Committee. I want to note my name is Katie Arslowski. I'm the council member for the 5th District. I'm also the chair of the city's Budget and Finance Committee, and I'm really excited to have you all here. Really grateful that you're willing to do this work. I want to note that there'll be no disruptions allowed during the meeting. That includes excuse me, disruptive noises and gestures that impede this committee's work. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Council Member. Ron Escalpern. Gilda Haas. Derek J. Johnson. Jessica Law. Joseph M. Lamardo. Absent. 4 members present and a quorum, Council Member.
And for the committee members, there's a button that says push on your mics. So you can push them before you speak and push it again to turn it off. So we've established a quorum.
Joe's going to be here any minute.
Oh, any minute? Or I heard it was?
Well, within probably 10 minutes.
10 minutes? So maybe we'll do public comment and see where we are. It doesn't look like we have that much. We'll wait to the... Yeah, we'll save the action items for when he gets here. I'll make some remarks and we'll go kind of slow. So we're going to move now to public comment. We're going to take multiple agenda items. Comment first, followed by general public comment. Mr. Clerk, would you please read the instructions on how to give public comment?
Yes, Council Member. For speakers that wish to speak on items on the committee agenda, please note you will have 2 minutes to speak on each item, up to total of 2 minutes total, and 1 minute for general public comment for matters within the Budget and Finance Committee Advisory Committee's jurisdiction. At this time, we only have 1 speaker, Mr. Lionel Morris.
All right, so I think we have 1 speaker. It's Mr. Morris. Welcome, go ahead.
Thank you, Councilmember Lionel Morris, Budget Advocate for Region 1, speaking on my own behalf. I'd like to thank you, Councilmember Yaroslavsky, community members for being here. Happy Thanksgiving. Lionel Morris, Budget Advocate, speaking for my own self. For my general public comments, I, as a ratepayer and taxpayer and resident of Los Angeles, City 6, I'm concerned about the city's financial condition and the potential cuts to city services. We, as residents, rely on city services, and I'm concerned about next year's fiscal year budget because I do not want the city to cut back further services. I don't want the city to cut back or lay off more non-sworn civilian employees who provide those services. And I urge this committee to find ways to preserve city services and to protect non-sworn civilian jobs from layoffs. And I will urge this committee to work with the budget advocates, look into the white paper recommendations, as well as the city controller's recommendations. And I just hope that this committee could find ways to protect city services and city jobs. Thank you very much for your time. And one last thing, like for your schedules for items 4 and 5, please try to find meeting times during after work hours because many people are not able to attend your meetings during work times. So I think similar to the Charter Reform Commission, find ways to have meetings in the evenings, in the afternoons, on weekends, if possible, please. Thank you for your time and happy holidays.
There are no further speakers. The public comment period can now be closed.
Thank you very much. Closing public comment. So move on to agenda item 1. Sorry, this is the first time we've done this committee, so.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to make some welcome and introductory remarks just to start us off. And hopefully Joe gets here soon. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. This is going to be really important work that informs how the Budget and Finance Committee and the city more broadly think about ways that we can be more efficient with the dollars we have and look at opportunities to bring in more revenue potentially in ways, hopefully, that minimize the increase in taxes or don't increase taxes at all. Within weeks of becoming chair of the city's Budget and Finance Committee chair, it was clear to me and my team that we needed a dedicated group of folks, outside experts with specific expertise who could be focused on the city's long-term fiscal health in sort of a holistic way. We've spent the last year, as you're probably all familiar, navigating serious budget pressures from wildfire recovery to rising costs and $1 billion budget deficit that we were looking at the beginning of this year. Those challenges showed us really how important it is to look past the immediate crisis of the day, and there's always an immediate crisis right in front of us, and address the factors that keep putting the city in a financially vulnerable position. So what are those underlying factors that we can start to make progress on? So this committee brings together independent voices with deep expertise in finance, economic development, investment strategy, and community work and real estate development. Your role is to help us examine what's not working in our current budgeting model and identify steps that strengthen the city's financial future. While you're all individually and collectively going to bring your necessary expertise and energy, I also want you to rely heavily on people outside of this room. And that charge includes conducting interviews with civic, nonprofit, academic, and private sector stakeholders, engaging city residents and budget advocates, financial experts, and community conversations to decipher long-term priorities, working closely with city departments, including the controller and the CAO, to obtain information needed to develop strong recommendations. And your recommendations are ultimately going to be compiled into a formal report to the Budget and Finance Committee. We hope that that report is specific and actionable. The city needs clear steps that can be implemented, not sort of theory, not broad concepts, but concrete policy, operational ideas that strengthen financial stability and help us plan for the future in a more responsible way. In terms of structure and timeline, just a couple of comments. The City Council authorized this committee to operate for 2 years. I expect your work to move perhaps in 6-month cycles focused on a manageable set of priorities. We know you have lives and careers outside of this committee. You'll have the support of city staff, my office, 2 graduate fellows from the UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs who are joining us for the next year to tackle this work and help you in your work. I want to acknowledge our 2 UCLA fellows, Golden Batchelder and Progridi Monolina. I also want to express my sincere thanks to Miguel Santana and the California Community Foundation for their partnership to support these fellows, because the support is coming from CCF. If you need additional tools or research support, consulting resources, please let us know, and we'll do what we can to accommodate that. I want to talk briefly about defining success, and this is sort of a roadmap. I want you all to also bring your own talents, expertise, and wisdom to this as well, but this is just sort of as a guide, some guidance. So success here isn't another general report on how to solve every problem in the city. We're not asking you to do that. Success, I think, for us will mean identifying a structural issue, naming exactly what needs to be fixed, or what you need to know more so that we can find out what those specifics are, outlining the motions or policy steps that you think are required or appropriate, identifying the committees and departments that would need to act, and charting the steps required for real implementation. Your work should push us away from emergency responses and being reactionary and towards sustainable fiscal planning. Ideally, this advisory group over the next 18 months will prepare recommendations on topics including but not limited to maximizing the city's property and assets, of which we have significant amounts of both, liability reduction, debt utilization, public-private partnerships, and flesh out reforms to the city charter and codes that would be required to effectuate your recommendations. And it's timely. That last piece is timely given that we're going through charter reform right now. So this can dovetail nicely with that work. Before I turn this back to the clerk, I want to introduce the esteemed panel of appointed members of this advisory committee. There'll be brief biographies. First, Ron Galperin, who's appointed by Councilmember Blumenfield. As a former city controller, Ron brings deep knowledge of the city's finances and functions, and will be a strong voice on fiscal stability. And personally, you've been an amazing mentor to me, and I'm really grateful that you're doing this. Also, one of my favorite constituents. Next, Gilda Haas. No, I don't. Gilda Haas, an appointee of Council President Harris Dawson. Her decades of work as an educator at UCLA in community economic development, co-founder of the LA Co-op Lab, and founding director of multiple community-based organizations. Gilda brings an essential ground-up perspective to this work, and I'm so grateful that you're here. Thank you. The first of my own appointees, Derek Johnson. Derek's currently the Vice President of Impact and Equity at United Way of Greater Los Angeles and has significant experience deploying public and private sector capital and driving system-level reforms. Also, we had the pleasure of working together at the county, and it's really nice to have you here. I'm really grateful that you're making the time. I'm also proud to introduce my second appointee, Jessica Lahl, as Managing Director for CBRE. Her experience in finance, real estate, and public-private partnerships will provide an invaluable perspective on economic development and real estate asset strategy, which I see as being really core to one of the most important places where we really haven't done much, and there's so much opportunity. Finally, Joseph Lumarda, who's not yet here. Hopefully he'll be here soon. Joseph is Council President Harris Dawson's appointee and is Senior Vice President and Investment Counselor for Capital Group Private Client Services, where he provides investment and financial services for clients. His expertise in managing and growing significant capital for community-focused institutions brings essential financial rigor to our team. Finally, I want to take a moment to thank the CLA, the CAO, City Clerk, and City Attorney, all of whom are represented here today, for assisting with the success of this committee. I know you are all very busy, and I'm really grateful that you're here. Everything from research to connecting the BFAC members to stakeholders and within the city family. You'd be hard-pressed to find a group of people who know how to navigate, who to talk to, better than the folks in this room. A special thank you to our clerk as well for administering this as a Brown Act body. No small effort to ensure the public is engaged in this process. I also want to thank our Neighborhood Council budget advocates who are represented here today by Mr. Morris. Their ongoing work continues to tee up great ideas this committee can draw upon, and I encourage you to be in contact with them, because a lot of the things that we've thought of as being novel and thought, oh, we came up with this great idea, actually the budget advocates have been talking about for years. Collectively, all of us working together can be invaluable in helping the committee to build clear, specific recommendations. To the members of the committee, thank you so much for your commitment to serve and help on this work. This is where I'll leave you all to do your work and turn it over to our capable clerk to help us on the next agenda item. So we may want to wait for Joe. I think we should wait for Joe to pick a chair. That's the next item on this agenda. Do we have a sense of where Mr. Lumarda is? Has anyone been in touch with him?
I was in touch with him this morning, and he said he would probably be here around 1:15-ish.
Okay. Okay. Do we want to take a little recess for 5 minutes and wait for him? Y'all want to wait for him before we do this next bit? I think it's probably a good idea, assuming he's going to be here soon. All right, Mr. Clerk, can we recess for 5 or 10 minutes?
Yes, Council Member.
Okay, thank you. We're in recess. Let's come out of recess. Do you need to take the roll?
Yes, Council Member. Ron Escalpern. Gilda Haas. Derek Johnson. Jessica Lahl. Joseph Lumarda. 5 members present and a quorum, Council Member.
Thank you. So welcome, Joe. You missed a little speech, which I'm happy to give you later if you want it. Bios on your colleagues and yourself. And just a bunch of gratitude that you're doing this. I know you're busy, and really grateful that you're serving in this capacity at this moment when the city really needs all the help we can get from folks who have specific expertise in the private sector that can bring to bear on the work we're doing here. So that's all we've done. We're going to go ahead and now vote on a chair of the committee, and then I'm going to leave you all to run your meeting. So, Mr. Clerk, would you please read the instructions on selecting a BFAC committee chair?
Yes, Council Member. Agenda item 2 is for the committee to nominate and vote to elect a chair and vice chair for the Budget and Finance Advisory Committee. At this time, nominations will be taken for the committee chair, for which a second will be requested for each nomination, and each member will cast their respective vote on the stated nominations. The committee chair will be elected upon a majority of the committee. The election for vice chair will follow thereafter. So at this time, I will call for any nominations of the committee for chair.
I'd like to nominate Ron Galpern as chair.
Is there a second for this nomination? Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, I will call on the votes. Mr. Galpern,
Yes.
Ms. Haas,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson, Ms. Lau,
Yes.
Mr. Lamarda. That's 5 ayes. Mr. Galpern is elected as committee chair. The election for vice chair may now proceed. And at this time, nominations will be taken for committee vice chair, for which a second will be requested for the nomination, and each member will cast your respective vote on the stated nominations.
I would like to nominate Jessica Lal.
Is there a second?
Second.
If there are no further nominations, we can proceed with the vote. Mr. Galpern. Ms. Haas. Mr. Johnson. Ms. Lau.
Yes.
Mr. Lamarda. Congratulations. Ms. Lau has been elected as vice chair.
Mr. Chair, I want to thank you all. I'm really, like I said, this is going to be really helpful, and I'm so glad the 5 of you are the 5 that are here, and I'm going to leave. So thank you very much.
And Mr. Galpern, you are welcome to sit in the chair seat, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so very much for the honor of this. I was asking offhandedly whether the city would pay for my therapy sessions along with this, but I think there is so much opportunity here because we all know about the challenges of the city, but there is so much opportunity, and our job is to unearth that opportunity and find a way to make it actually happen. Next up on the agenda is a report from the CAO. So would like to invite them to please come up. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Good afternoon.
Let me just do this so I can see. Okay, you can hear me, right? All right. Matt Szabo, City Administrative Officer. So what I'm going to do today, I provided a paper copy, unfortunately not an electronic copy, of a presentation that will seek to do a couple of things. Number one, just walk you through briefly what our current budget process is. And I will emphasize current because as the council member stated, we are in the middle of, or I shouldn't say we, the Charter Commission is doing its work, evaluating proposals on potential changes to our budget process, including a discussion of a multi-year budget, a 2-year or multi-year budget. We currently have a 1-year budget. We do the same thing over every year. So I'll walk through and you'll have the background on that. A lot of what's in here can be used for your information moving forward. So I'll walk through the process. I'll walk through the status of where we are currently with our budget and where we are through our financial status reports for the beginning, for the first part of this fiscal year. And if it's at your pleasure, I can answer questions as you'd like. So I will walk through this relatively quickly. As I said, I think much of this is information that you can refer to as you proceed with your work. But just going to, and it's, I'm sorry if I can't really see what I'm looking at right here. This room is notoriously dark and with extraordinary acoustics. So let me know if you can't hear, and I may be moving the page really close to my face. But what you see on slide, I believe, is 3, is our budget development process. And the first takeaway here is the budget development process is really a year-round process. So as soon as the fiscal year begins, we are already starting the budget development process for the following fiscal year. I will highlight a couple of key marks in this process. In August, typically in August, sometimes in September, the mayor will officially begin the budget development process by issuing a budget policy letter, essentially instructing the departments on how they should begin to craft their proposals for the following fiscal year. The departments spend September and October working with the mayor's office in some cases in providing previews of what they may propose. But then in November, they submit their proposed budget to my office and to the mayor's office for the following fiscal year. We then spend the next several months. First, my office does analysis on the proposals, and there are multi-layers of analysis that is conducted. It starts with, if it is a new proposal, what is the problem that the proposal is attempting to solve, and does the proposal actually show that it has a likelihood of solving that problem. Oftentimes in the city, there will be spending proposals without a clear problem definition, and so oftentimes we lead with the solution as opposed to establishing the problem first. So that is one layer of analysis that is conducted by my office. We then present our analysis to the mayor's office. All of this is happening within the confidentiality of the budget development process that the mayor in our charter owns. So it is a confidential process until the mayor makes her proposal to the city council on the 20th of April. So the work happens. The mayor makes decisions. Oftentimes, departments are called in for what we call departmental hearings, and we have a mini budget hearing on that department with the CAO staff and the mayor's staff, and are able to ask questions. The departments are able to make additional requests or requests over and above what has been indicated to them is what is likely to be in their proposal. The budget then is proposed on the 20th of April, and then there is a relatively rapid review process by the city council. Each day is very lengthy, but when you're talking about evaluating a $13 billion budget in about 3 weeks' time, there's a tremendous amount of information that the committee works through in a relatively short period of time, and then the budget is generally sent to the city council in May for another round of hearings and a vote in May, so that it can be approved per the charter by June. So that's a little bit of the process, and then of course the budget starts. That all starts over again when pretty much at the beginning of next fiscal year. Actually, I will say one other thing, since we are talking about potential changes. What is missing in this process is at least institutionalized evaluation, and I think that's yes, evaluation. So as soon as we are literally beginning to develop proposals for additional funding, or at minimum continued funding, if not additional funding, for the following fiscal year before any of the money is really spent or any of the programs are executed for the current fiscal year. So there isn't, in our current calendar, there really isn't the time for evaluation of current programs before the mayor and the council are considering layering on top of those programs in subsequent budget years or in subsequent fiscal years. The next few slides, it just gives you a sense of where we are for our 25-26 adopted budget. We had relatively low growth, about 1.8% from adopted to adopted. Our fiscal 25 budget, general fund budget, was 8.033 billion, and it increased only to 8.178 billion in the adopted fiscal 26 budget. You see our special fund budget, our overall budget grew to just over 14 billion, and you see a very large increase in the special funds. That is largely due to increases in fees to some of our special funded programs in the Bureau of Sanitation, both solid waste and sewer construction and maintenance. If you look at if you move to the next slide, we're talking about position authorities, and you can see on the general fund side, we moved from 24,739 positions in fiscal 25 to 23,619 position authorities in fiscal 26. So that's net down just over 1,100 positions. The fiscal 26 budget did eliminate a total of about 1,600 positions. Then some positions in other areas were added, but it eliminated about around 1,000 vacant positions, and then another 614 filled positions. Those were the positions that, when we say eliminating filled positions, synonymous with layoffs. That's the number that we look at when we're talking about how many potential layoffs are there. As we've proceeded through this fiscal year, there was a desire by everyone in the city, the mayor, the council, and everyone involved with keeping the city together, to reduce that layoff number as much as possible. And the reason for that is that layoffs in the city, because there are civil service rights to positions, and it's not a matter of just removing 614 people if you were to proceed with 614 layoffs, but because as you proceed through your city career, you maintain status and you establish status, those 614 people would lose their current job, but then revert to their old job. And the people in their old job would lose their job and revert to their previous job. And so you create 614 layoffs would have or could create a cascade effect of displacement of literally thousands and thousands of workers that would really make it difficult for departments to do their work, particularly because they would be filling positions not of their choosing with employees that may not have the same training that's required for that position. And there's that is inherent to the civil service process. So it is incredibly disruptive, and there was a public service benefit to eliminating and reducing that number of layoffs to the greatest extent possible. So we've done two things. One, we've basically instructed departments that any vacancies need to be filled with people that otherwise would be laid off to eliminate that layoff. We have also been working with, and by we, I mean my office and the mayor and the city council. My office also is responsible for labor relations in the city. And we have secured agreements that will provide cost savings that will allow us to reduce the number of layoffs, at least for the current fiscal year, to prevent that disruptive process. If you move to the next slide on authorized city staffing, this just shows a historical. What you see is that we're at, and this is overall staffing, including special funds. What we were talking about earlier was just general fund. So we're at 33,286 authorized positions. And that is the lowest point since we were emerging from the Great Recession. If I guess that's back, if I think that's 2015, 2016, or 2016, 2017. But the echo of the Great Recession really it lasted almost a decade. As you saw, we had a significant drop off of positions, and that continued as we were recovering, and only started to tick up recently. But the effects lasted for a good 10 years. Just a few items on revenues. I won't spend a whole lot of time on that, but again, this is mostly for your background information as you are considering your work on this committee. We have 7 main sources of economy-sensitive revenues: property tax, sales tax, hotel tax, TOT, business tax, documentary transfer tax or tax on sale of property, parking, and utility users tax. And the difference, and if you go to the next slide, it shows you the distribution of, not the distribution, but the percentage each general fund revenue source provides our overall general fund. And unlike many cities that rely principally on property tax, which is the most stable source of revenue, 63% of our general fund revenue is not property tax. So that what that means is, on one hand, it is a strength because we have diverse, a broad-based economy, diverse revenue sources. But on the other hand, it is also the city of Los Angeles is more sensitive to swings in the economy. Business tax, sales tax, hotel tax are very sensitive to recession or any economic swings. Again, if you look on the next slide, we walk through our economically sensitive revenues. And this for this fiscal year, we did see some easing, or we saw continued easing of some of our principal general fund revenue sources. Business tax only projected to increase by 1%. Sales tax actually projected to decrease. We are seeing a somewhat of an uptick in documentary transfer tax, and we attribute that principally to interest rates, the interest rate environment improving for the housing market, and also there was we certainly saw an initial freeze in the market when Measure ULA first went into effect. There was clearly a freeze, and that appears to be thawing as well. The next 2 slides I won't spend any time on. This is just for your information. It just shows the revenue, the year-end revenue performance in fiscal 25, and then our actual revenue versus projected revenue from fiscal 25 to 26. So if we look at our actual receipts to our projected receipts from 25 to 26, we're looking at about a 2.8% increase if you take out the one-time transfer from the Budget Stabilization Fund. Moving on to our first financial status report, which was issued last month. It's very early in the fiscal year to give you an idea about how we are doing. Most of our information on our revenues will come in at the second and at the mid-year financial status report, much of our revenue, we don't get a clear picture on revenue performance for the current fiscal year until about February, and that's why both our office and the controller's office makes our projections. We can't make our projections for the following fiscal year until about March, when we have enough information on the current fiscal year to make that assessment for the following. That said, we are currently doing okay on revenue. We're about $80 million above plan. There are certainly risks in property tax and hotel tax and sales tax that we're closely monitoring, but we'll have more information on that as we proceed through the fiscal year and our forthcoming financial status reports. Our reserve fund. So I'm now on, I believe that's slide 15. Our financial policies require that at least 5% of general fund revenue is held in our reserve fund. As we've seen through the past several years, oftentimes that is, well, I'll just say I have advocated for a long time that our reserve fund should be much higher than 5%. 5% is our financial policy minimum. Really, it should be our minimum should be closer to 10%. In our financial policies, we have a goal of 10% for our reserves, which we have hit once or twice, depending on how you count. But really, we should be much more rigorous in our reserve fund, because when we start the year with a 5% reserve, we're almost guaranteed then to drop below that minimum. And then that creates problems should we have an emergency and really need to use the reserve fund for what the reserve fund is there for, which is unexpected circumstances. This year, in order to get the reserve to that 5% minimum, there had to be an appropriation in the budget to get it to 5%, a significant appropriation of over $120 million. That even when we started the year, or planned to start the year at 5.13%, there were draws on the reserve, again, that were unexpected, including a significant draw on the reserve due to the immigration raids and the LAPD response, which happened right at the end of the fiscal year, essentially after the books had closed. So to cover that additional overtime that was required, we had to go into the reserve to the tune of about $22 million. And then lastly, I'll talk a little bit about the outlook. This is a tool that we use to forecast where we are and to assess whether the city is in a structural deficit or not. So this is, I really cannot read that, but it's the chart right here. And we publish the 4-year outlook when the mayor proposes the budget, and then when the council adopts the budget. And what this reflects is that we are projecting, if all things remaining the same, and I'll talk about that in a moment, that we would have a $91 million gap to close for next fiscal year. We would be at structural balance the following fiscal year, and then in the subsequent next 2 fiscal years would have surpluses of 238 and 453 million. But what does that actually show? What that means is a couple of things. Number one, all of the cuts that were made in this current fiscal year, all of the position reductions are maintained for the next 4 years. It also does not assume a recession, and we typically don't, in the 4-year outlook, we don't assume things that are not known. So if we certainly use, for our revenue projections, we use current trends, but we're not going to assume a recession absent information that we are headed to a recession or that we are in that recession, and that would be immediately affecting our revenues. But we cite that as a risk. So this forecast assumes that the cuts that were made are maintained. It assumes no recession, and it essentially assumes no new services. It assumes that the city this is what it will cost to maintain the services that this current budget provides for the next 4 years. The other major assumption is that while we have built in all of the costs, all of the labor costs for all of the MOUs, for all of the contracts that have been agreed to, when those contracts expire, most of them expire in fiscal 27-28, we then revert to a 2% escalator, absent any other agreements that would change that. So principally the increases in fiscal 28-29 and 29-30, the huge surpluses you see there is almost entirely an assumption, almost entirely based on the current contracts expiring, and then reverting back to our expenditure assumption, reverting back to that 2%, and not an assumption of that the current contracts at the current rates would continue on. The next slide just basically illustrates what I explained: no recession, that the cuts are maintained, and no new labor costs. With that, there are a few more slides, but much of that is just for your information. Our historical contributions to LACERS and fire and police pensions, as they in total dollars and as percent of our as a percentage of our general fund, and then some other information that was contained in our first financial status report. I've also included for your information and reference our financial policies and how the adopted budget complied in most cases, and in some cases fell short of compliance for fiscal 25-26. I will stop there, and I'm available for questions if you'd like.
Thank you very much for that presentation and for laying all of this out. I'll turn to my fellow commissioners and ask if you've got some questions at this point.
I have one. Thank you for the informative report and your work. Has there been, or when would there be, analysis of the ballot initiatives that are in discussion or put forward in terms as it relates potentially to the city budget?
So there will be the reason I'm hesitating is that there's a number of initiatives that would affect the city budget. There are some initiatives that I am aware of because they're being talked about but haven't been formalized, that may affect the city budget. There's also the potential for the charter amendments. Are you referring to those, or all of it?
All of them.
All of it. Okay. So to the extent that any measure would affect the city budget, and it qualifies, so I typically would not present analysis to the council and the mayor on an initiative until it qualifies for the ballot. Not in all cases. It just depends. I obviously report on whatever the council requests, but typically we wouldn't do the full top to bottom analysis unless an initiative is qualified for the ballot, and then typically we would present that for consideration. As it relates to the actual budget process that could potentially be changed as a result of some of the charter reform efforts, there will be a council process. So the commission will present its recommendations to the council, and then the council will review those recommendations and then put those on the ballot. So there would be significant review and analysis done and provided to the council at that time. We're also engaging at the commission's request directly on some items.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. House?
Forgive my ignorance, but do you have a glossary of acronyms? They're just, I know
Yes.
like people just have, a level of familiarity that I might not have, but
Yeah.
they're used freely.
Yes, and actually we do, and we do have some briefing documents that we can provide that too. Yes, yes, acronyms, and then also just other terms. There's a lot of terms here that mean certain things that certainly isn't evident to everyone. So, of course.
Any others?
One more. You don't have to answer today, but I'm really curious about the information you provided related to the status of the reserve fund and the 5% that you said is the kind of financial policy minimum, and your recommendations that you're operating at least a 10% baseline. Just curious because it only has the information here from like fiscal year like 25, 26. I'm just wondering what the kind of traditional like kind of duration of when were you operating at a 10% baseline, and like what you would recommend to actually get to that baseline? I mean, again, not today, but it's something I'd be curious about learning.
Certainly, we can certainly provide that. I could tell you, if I recall correctly, in it's available on the website currently, but in our presentation to the council on the mayor's proposed budget, we typically have an exhibit that shows the historical reserve fund performance, and we were at a north of 10% in 22 fiscal 22, and again we were right on the edge, 21 22 and 22 23.
Any other questions from commissioners? I'll ask one last question then, if I may, which is in the lead up to the creation of this commission and also its first meeting, there have been literally dozens and dozens of ideas that have been tossed out there as money saving or money generating ideas. It is, of course, impossible to delve into all of them. Knowing what you know, which is an awful lot, if you were sitting here on this other side of the of this room, what would you be recommending in terms of areas that you think we should be looking into most sincerely?
In terms of revenue generation?
In terms of revenue and in terms of potential savings and in terms of other kinds of recommendations that we might make.
Well, look, I think part of how we typically measure over time is how much money we're spending in a certain area, and I do not think that there's a direct line between how much we spend and and how effective the city is delivering services, and that is I'm not prepared to give you a silver bullet, but to the extent that we are able to institutionalize evaluation before we're making long-term financial commitments, I think over time that would be a significant improvement that would provide significant benefits to the policymakers and to the people that they serve. 80% of what we spend in the city is on people, and ensuring that you have the right people and the right number of people in the most efficient way possible, dedicated to the services that are most core to the city, is it seems like an obvious objective and question that should be answered first. But when we're going through the process that I just laid out, where it's department by department presenting budget over budget without institutionalized evaluation, you can lose that, and you end up with a $8.1 billion budget or a $14 billion budget without even answering that primary question of how or what is the most effective way to spend the money on what's most important to the people who we serve as a city. And again, there's not one answer to that, but it would be institutionalizing a process that would require that kind of evaluation and an action and adjustment by the leadership in order to continually move towards a more efficient use of very scarce resources. It isn't just a problem of we just don't have enough money. That is part of the problem, and there are certain ways that are currently being discussed on how that can be enhanced. Our ability to tax is very limited, as you know, in a number of ways, in just the amount that we can bring in, and also the thresholds. So it is absolutely imperative in Los Angeles that those dollars are used as efficiently as possible.
Great, thank you. And one last thing, which is you've mentioned a couple of times institutionalizing the evaluation. Do you have a set of proposals, or has there been a memo on the subject, or do you have ideas that you've shared before, and would you be wanting to perhaps share them in a future meeting with us?
I would be happy to, and I will begin as I mentioned. I have been asked to discuss some of these concepts with the Charter Reform Commission, and so I will be presenting that. I'll be presenting that next week, in fact, and I'll be happy to share that and even come talk to you about that at a subsequent meeting.
That'd be great. Thank you so very much.
Okay.
And
Very
happy
good.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Good job.
I believe next up we have a presentation by the CLA. Is that correct? Thank you so very much, Chair Yaroslavsky.
Hi, everybody. I'm Andrea Galvin with the CLA's office. I don't have a lot to say, but I know Mr. Szabo went through the budget process. One thing I did want to highlight was because our office doesn't get involved in the budget process until the mayor releases the budget on April 20th. It's a very short timeline. It's about 6 weeks that council has to make any recommended changes. So I just wanted to highlight that we don't have any information about what will be in the budget until April 20th. Once it becomes released, our office takes about a week to summarize the entire budget, present it to council. We then go through about a week of department hearings where we hear from every department. It's like very extensive discussions with the Budget and Finance Committee. After a week, we kind of have a sense of where the committee is going and what their priorities are. We spend about another week crafting our recommendations for any changes that need to be made. The percentage of changes that we actually make to the overall budget are very small, but oftentimes they're very important. Last year alone, we were in this crunch to save, over 1,000 jobs. So even though it's a small percentage monetarily, sometimes the swaps that we make are really important. Once we give our recommendations to the Budget and Finance Committee, they often make some additional recommendations and changes, and then the entire council takes up the Budget and Finance Committee recommendations, and that is when the budget is officially adopted, when council considers those changes, makes their own changes. It's all very quick. It's about 6 weeks, like I said. There's not a lot of time to make changes that may be long lasting. A lot of that work is done prior to us seeing the budget. We kind of scramble and do what we can to make sure, you know, jobs are saved or, you know, changes to revenue that we can. But at the same point, if we were given more time, sometimes that's more time to think and more time to come up with things that I don't know if more time would be better or not. Because after the budget's you know, adopted, it's not set in stone. It's a plan, and we can make changes throughout the year to that plan. That's when the CAO's FSR reports come in. That's the financial status report, where changes can be made depending on which departments are overspending, who's in a surplus, and different programs that maybe need to be funded. But that's pretty much all I have to say. Again, we come at the tail end, but we do our best to make sure that council priorities are addressed. So if you have any questions, I'm here now, but we could be here in a subsequent meeting also. So.
Thank you. Any questions? If I may, I've got three for you.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll try and keep it brief. One is about what kind of resources the CLA has that might be useful in the work of this commission. The second question is, you've seen a lot of commissions over the years, and a lot of recommendations over the years, some of which get put in place, some of which don't. Any advice for how to be more successful in terms of seeing the ideas put forward actually get put into action? And then my last question, but I can repeat these if you want, but is you mentioned sort of the challenging timeline that you face. Are you also recommending a different timeline in terms of budget and the involvement of CLA?
Can you repeat your first question?
Sure. Okay. First of all, resources that the CLA would have to aid in the work of this commission.
I think this goes along with your second question as well. If there are subjects that you all want to explore as far as what's been done before, kind of what roads we went down and where did it take us, we can definitely help you with that. You know, we have all the information about, you know, past ballot measures, just any suggestions that have come up about either raising revenue or lowering expenditures. A lot of it, though, is increasing revenue. We've seen a lot of that over the past however many decades. And so if you guys need information on legislatively how all that panned out, we can definitely provide you with that.
That'd be very, very helpful. Thank you. And then the last one was about the timeline.
And what was it, if I feel like there's any
Well, you were describing sort of the challenges of the current timeline and the ability to have the kind of input perhaps that you'd like to be able to have, or for the kind of thoughtfulness that one ideally would love to see in a budget process. Are you recommending a different timeline or tweaks to it, or?
Like I said, it's hard to say because I feel like if council had more time, sometimes it's too long. So we always, you know, we're scrambling and putting these reports together, and especially for our CLA recommendations report, we have about a week to put this together, and we are working around the clock in our office. But as our CLA Sharon So always says, it's either a week of torture or 3 weeks of torture. Like, you're just going to continue to make changes, and at some point decisions have to be made, and sometimes you need those deadlines to say, listen, what are the priorities? And you need to make those decisions then, because they could change. I mean, they're going to morph. And like I said, it's a plan. It's not a fixed document. It's something that we rely on to hopefully guide us through, not to, you know, you don't have to stand by it 100%. I think for our office, it's hard to say because I don't know how many council offices, how much they know before the budget is released. I know for us, we just really don't know a lot. But again, I don't have anything specific that I would change. I think that for our office personally, I really wanted us to understand kind of what goes into the decision-making process from July 1 to April 20th. But that's kind of internal, that I think it would be nice for us to understand how those decisions are made for departments. But the timeline, I don't know if making it longer would help that. I think it's just we want a better understanding. So I think we should just be asking those questions of what did it take to get to this point. So that way from April 20th to June 1st, we kind of have an idea instead of just being, you know, blindsided with information that we never heard of before. So I think the timeline is okay. I just think we need to search for more information before that, just to kind of see how it goes. And that's something we've been talking to the CAO about and departments about, just knowing what kind of conversations have been had before the budget was actually released.
Great. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your time. Have a happy Thanksgiving. I don't believe there are other presentations, are there? I would like, if I may, to just query of staff the following in terms of, and what we might do is put this in a letter form as well, but just to better understand the resources that might be available through the CLA, through the CAO, through the Budget and Finance Committee and its staff, through the City Attorney's Office, what ability we might have in terms of asking certain departments to come in and report to us, and or asking of them to present reports or to work on that, a sense of the UCLA Fellows and how much time is available from them, and also whether there are any roles or any resources that might be available from the controller's office or through the mayor's office, etc. I'm not sure who's the best person to tackle that laundry list of questions.
That's a good question. I think you're asking for a report back from the city's departments and offices on what information they have available for you. Is that a good way of putting it?
Not just information, but also resources in terms of doing research if there's something that we want researched, or reporting back on particular kind of questions, etc.
Okay, just off the top of my head, I think the Office of Finance and the CAO would be best to report back on information about revenue generation. On the other side, I'm Dan Whitley from the City Attorney's Office. I'll talk and see who we can get. And what I'm hearing is you're asking for a written report back on this. I think you're asking for the Office of Finance and the CAO to report back on what information is available. I think at this point, that's how I'm
that would be helpful to us.
Something that comes to mind that would be maybe an example of what you're talking about. I know the city looked at establishing an economic development corporation to manage asset real estate. Maybe that just being able to do an audit of, and maybe this comes further into our group discussions around ideas or concepts. But yeah, it would be great to know what has been looked at and why it didn't move forward, for what reason, any cost, just to kind of maybe shortcut some of our work to relevant items that may be worth exploring or not exploring.
Those are exactly the kinds of things that our office, the CLA, can do. Any kind of major subjects like that, we can look into to whatever the outcome was and why, so we could help you with those things.
And that may be a cousin of what you were talking about,
Yes.
not exactly what you were referring to.
Well, it is certainly a part of what it is that I was talking about, and that will be very helpful because, look, there have been a lot of great ideas put forward in the past over many years. I don't know that our role is necessarily to come up with a whole new laundry list, but rather to kind of focus on many good recommendations that have come in the past that have not come to pass, and better understanding why that's the case and what could be done to perhaps get them implemented.
Yeah, I mean, because it might be timing issues or the way of the world was back then or whatever, because, yeah, so you're right. A new laundry list isn't necessary. I think if we just go with, as they come up, let us know, and we can look into, whatever the outcomes were, so.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please do.
Since the CLA is here, do you think you could put together a report with what resources you believe would
If you
be
could just talk into the
available?
mic, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
we
sorry.
can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Could you put together a report with Office of Finance and CAO's potential as well? Because they're not here.
I can talk to them about, and we can work with CD5 to work with you all to see. I mean, it's hard to say a list of things we can provide because we're basically, here as city staff to help you along with anything. So, but we can all talk internally and figure out what you guys need.
May I make a
Mr.
suggestion
Commissioner,
also?
please.
Because I really would not want you to have to go through a laundry list of things that have like already been done without us narrowing in on
Absolutely.
Right.
specifically we want them to look for.
Yes.
So I think maybe it would be advantageous for us to like kind of prioritize what we may want to consider, and then from those prioritizations, see what you
Exactly. So
done.
like what you mentioned
Yep.
is very specific. So yeah, if this group could specify what they want to look into, that would be great, and we'll be happy to do it.
That's great.
Thank you. Commissioner Haas, were you asking a question? Okay, great. Thank you so very much again. All right, so next up on our agenda is a discussion of committee focus areas. And what I've done in advance of this, I've taken the liberty of kind of taking stock, as it were, of many of the ideas that have been put out there at one point or another for what the work of this committee might do. And I do so with a caveat that we cannot do all of them, clearly, and that they are not necessarily all of equal priority, although some may be easier to accomplish than others and some may be more immediate than others. But if I may, what I'd like to say is the baskets that these have been put in, but it's not an absolute structure. It's a proposal, as it were, and very much important to hear the input of the commissioners on this. So, to be brief, or to try and be brief, one basket might be called economic development and asset management, and that includes a couple of different things. One, as Councilmember Yaroslavsky was talking about, a recent trip that she had to New York, looking at their community development activities and what kind of models there are out there. There's certainly been a lot of research that's been done over the years. Years ago, we had a CRA that stopped being in existence, as we all know. So what kind of entity might there be created, and what might it be charged with doing? In a related way is also a Los Angeles Real Estate Development Corporation, in that the city of LA, one of its great assets is the real estate that it owns, and it sometimes functions as a property manager right now, but not as a portfolio manager. And arguably, the city of LA is the largest owner of real estate in Los Angeles. And when I served as controller, there was a report suggesting the potential structure for such a development corporation. We may want to go look back and see why hasn't that happened, and what could be done to perhaps make that happen. As part of this basket, we might also look at other assets of the city that might be monetized in some fashion, including perhaps the data, a look at P3s, although that could be very much part of looking at a community development corporation. And then also, especially this being the season when the Charter Commission is working, are there charter limitations or challenges that we need to be thinking about in terms of what kind of business-like activities the city might engage in? Any questions about that before I go on to the second potential basket? Okay. So the second basket, tentatively, we might call something like financial management. And that would be a couple of different things. First of all, looking at the city's treasury, which generally is in the range of about $15 to $16 billion at any given moment in time, although it fluctuates during the course of the year. and looking at the return on investment of that treasury and how it performs compared to, for example, the pension funds that we have, the 3 different pension funds. And are there opportunities to increase the return on investment? 100 basis points, for example, on Treasury would translate into about $150, $160 million a year, which is no small sum. Along with that is also looking at the city's use of TRAN, which are the temporary revenue anticipation notes, and that is money that the city borrows on a short-term basis to meet certain needs and make certain kinds of payments. Might there be opportunities to borrow from ourselves as opposed to going to the outside? And then linked with all of this are the many special purpose funds, which some of you may know has been a obsession of mine in many ways. We have well more than 850 special funds at this point. There's a special fund for just about everything that you can possibly imagine. I would argue that there are too many of these, and we should look at how can we consolidate some of them, looking at how we can get greater reimbursements from perhaps proprietary and enterprise funds for the general fund, so the general fund can be bolstered. Looking also at, it's very kind of prosaic, but the cost allocation plan or the cap of the city, and are there ways to look at how the city and its general fund could be better reimbursed, as it were. And then also looking at those departments that have funds that have grown exponentially, sometimes much faster than their expenditures or the services that they offer. And last part of this basket, as it were, might also be a look at debt, particularly, we've got about $2.47 billion in outstanding LA wastewater system revenue bonds, looking at the interest that we pay, looking at the structure of how we are doing this, and are there ways to perhaps save some money. The third basket, and again, all of these are subject to discussion. This is what might be considered the grab bag, which is revenues, expenditures, efficiencies, and innovations. And that would be looking at a couple things. First of all, revenues. How can we get more automatic increases, for example, for cost recovery for city services? Might we look at certain kind of franchising opportunities and or certain kind of fees for delivery or for carriers? Looking at our parking enforcement and parking tickets. The parking tickets used to be a source of great revenue for the city. They are now, from everything I've looked at, a source of loss to the city, which is kind of shocking. Back in 2016, I'll note that there was about 157 million in revenue. Now we're looking more at about 110 million in revenues. Significant decrease, while the cost of the enforcement has actually increased by 40%. So what used to be a money-making activity, not that parking tickets are supposed to be about making money for a city, but typically they are a source of revenue, has turned into something that is very much not that in the city of LA. Looking at a variety of different licenses and fees and charges, and are there different ways we can restructure those? Looking at street damage restoration fees, commercial signage revenues, and then on the expenditure side, looking at issues of workers' compensation, which is a huge cost to the city. How do we reduce that, and how do we reduce the amount of injuries that are incurred and or alleged? There was mention of managing overtime, considering activities the city might eliminate or transfer to another entity, cost comparisons of city services versus what others are paying for some of those services or for those goods, and generally looking at opportunities in the future when it comes to best practices, next practices in other jurisdictions in the private sector at automation and AI. And last but not least, As if that wasn't enough, a variety of other ideas that have been put out there that I don't necessarily know that we have the bandwidth, but again, I want to hear back from the commissioners, which are looking at the reform of development approval services, liability and risk management, compensation and benefits, pensions, civil service reform, examining the relationship between the city and the county, and how much we see in terms of either property tax or the services that they may provide for us. There was mention also by the council member of the city's antiquated procurement system, performance-based budgeting, and also just looking at how the budget itself is actually created and presented and debated, and it's a lot to slog through for people, including the council members. How can it be easier to look at, to understand, and to also put potential changes in there and understand what their result is going to be? With that, I would love to open it up for some feedback as we find a way to take this gargantuan list and make some sense of it. I know I threw a lot at you. Anybody want to start? We're going to do that all by next Tuesday, right?
Yes, I was wondering whether I would live long enough to whether I would live long enough to cover your list. I had a couple of things. Like one of the things that I mean, besides all the details and stuff that impressed me about the CAO presentation was the issue of leading with solutions that didn't have a problem that was that generated it, you know, and stuff. And so I would really like us to take that into account, that when we take something on, an economic development corporation, what problem is that solving? Why should it exist in all the other kinds of things, that kind of thing. The second thing that I think would be helpful for us as new friends would be to come up with touchstones for evaluating our own ideas. And for me, I mean, I have my own values, I guess you would say, that are important to me. Maybe for the last 40 years, they might be different than yours, but I think it's worth discussing. So, for example, everybody here, as I understand from your biographies, is really concerned about equity. And so, like, what is the impact on whom of the decisions that we're making? And I think that we should always be asking that question, because in my little life, this city has become increasingly unequal over the decades, and it's caused devastating impacts on the population and the capacity of the city to deal with that. So that's one. Another one is this is all about efficiency. I think as a team, we should have our own definition of what do we mean by efficiency, because there's many ways to measure that. And when you're talking about people's lives, when you're talking about communities, when you're talking about leverage, there's lots of ways to measure that. And so that would be a good theme for us to have a conversation about, and it's a good way to get to know each other. And then finally, I think one of the ways to kind of combine the first two is like, what kind of capacity are we requiring? Because there's so many, you can pass a motion for anything in the city and you could get a lot of agreement. And how are we going to get a capacity to implement it? How are we going to actually be able to effectively, what will it take for change to be effectively implemented? What kind of capacity are we building in the city? Why is that worth an investment? Again, because the thing that we're asking for is a valuable solution to an important problem. So those are my thoughts.
All outstanding observations and really important. I will say one thought that I have on that is that I think that efficiency can very much be also coupled with, results and greater equity. And for example, in looking at the special funds, I was just reviewing all the special funds that have something to do with homelessness or housing. And the count is that there are 85 different funds, each with its own rules and its own governing documents of how that money can be spent. Some of those monies have also been idle for a while because some of the rules that were set up or some of the purposes that were originally envisioned restrict the use of that money. So how do we look at not just being much more efficient when it comes to the monies that we have, but actually achieving much better results? And do we in fact need 85 different special funds that have something to do with housing or homelessness? Or is there a way to make it more simple so that the money can be deployed to create greater equity? I believe you had some thoughts.
Yes. Thank you for attempting to summarize a very
My
vast
apologies
list
in
of
advance.
things. And I appreciated the Commissioner Haas's comments. I think as we go into I think we're doing smaller groups to take a look at things. I think having a set of criteria by which we're evaluating what we're going to pursue and not that we all have sort of agreed upon what problem are we solving. I also think having some sort of evaluation of based on what Mr. Szabo had to say about we just can't just do things and then never check in to see what's working, how can things be better, would also be important. And, as far as the list goes, I think starting broad and then trying to narrow down, sounded like our councilwoman wanted us to sort of break things into 6-month increments, if I heard that correctly, over a 2-year period. So personally, I think the asset management bucket that you outlined would be an important one to look at once we've sort of established how we are looking at some of these things, just given how land rich the city really is. And it's something I know that's been talked about for some time. And then the financial management, I think we heard from our CLA and CAO, there are some definite areas that we are worth looking into. I don't know that we can really narrow down right now what those specifics are, but those seem to make sense to me.
Great, that's all really outstanding observations, and I'll add one other level to that, which is that there are things that we know will have a tremendous impact in the long term. Asset management being one of them, particularly when it comes to the real estate of the city. It's not likely that we'll see the results of that within 6 months or a year, or it takes time. How can we also couple that with some wins, as it were, that actually generate some more immediately needed funds to help fill the budget gaps that the city has, and to make sure that we do at least our part to try and preserve services and the work that the city does.
I like the question you asked about where the reserve was at one time in the trend analysis. And this is where kind of my mind goes when I'm thinking about a task like this, because there are a lot of broad philosophies and policies that keep us sometimes away from the raw numbers. And I think it might be good not only to have some of those policies that we could change, that would change things over a long period of time. But if I had a goal that I knew was concrete in terms of a dollar number that would take us incrementally from the 5% part to the 10% part of where we would like to be, it would better, if I'm looking at two different things and we're looking at more than two things, and I'm thinking, well, is that driving the needle or is this driving the needle? That's what's that's what I'm going to follow. So that's where my nose is going to go to, is what is going to put us more into a surplus area as opposed to in a short amount of time than looking at something that might be a kind of a, no offense, but kind of a policy slog of how is this going to maybe make us more efficient, but I'm not seeing where the money really is behind it. So that's kind of my bottom line. Maybe I'm too much of a bottom line person, but that's the...
No, not at all. No, thank you. Please.
I concur with that statement. And there was something that was elevated during the CAO's presentation for me that really stood out also. And it was the fact that he said 80% of the money is spent on people.
Yeah,
right?
in excess of 80%.
80%.
80%,
Yeah.
right? And so that's again, one of those huge bottom line figures. Like, can you give us a little bit more context in terms of like where that money's going related to those people, whether it be liability cost? You know, I think even our conversation yesterday, one of the things we know happens on a consistent basis are these settlements and liabilities for underperforming departments. I know even if you're looking at something like the LA Police Department, their liability deficits have tripled over the last, I think 3 or 4 years.
Like from lawsuits?
Yeah, strictly from lawsuits. And I mean, even in my time in the public sector over at the public council, at the county office, a majority of the time we spent was really looking at the deficits related to how much money we were putting out to actually mitigate cases and the set-asides in the budget to litigate those cases. Just as an example, but workers' comp that you mentioned, I think is another one of those components when you look at overtime expenses and what the hiring freezes do to essentially exacerbate the folks who actually are collecting overtime dollars, and then looking at what the long-term implications have on folks filing claim because they've actually worked overtime, right? There are real collateral consequences that lead to like much broader impacts. But I would personally want to start with understanding what that 80% baseline is for costs related to personnel people and understanding like where those dollars are being allocated.
Actually, those we can request those numbers from the CAO or from a variety of different entities in the city. I've seen what those numbers are, and they're presented in a whole variety of different ways in either budget documents or presentations. A lot of it is actually online, but we can definitely make sure that that is available certainly for our next meeting. What you point out also is kind of interesting in that everything is about the lens that you seek to apply to it. So you look at the issue of liabilities, for example, and certainly they have been climbing. And people have often talked about, well, if we just kind of fix all of our sidewalks and people don't trip on them, then we'll eliminate those liabilities. But we know that it's going to be billions of dollars to fix all those sidewalks, and that in and of itself does not eliminate the liabilities. We also know that there are thousands of lawsuits that are filed against the city. It's some of them are just a kind of cost of doing business. How do we compare to other cities in terms of whether those liabilities are significantly greater or not? And sometimes it can take just one case to kind of throw off the numbers. For example, there's a recent case of someone who tragically was run over by I believe it was a trash truck that was right in the civic center area, and it resulted in a $40 million judgment against the city. Is that predictable? Is it not predictable? Was it preventable, not preventable? I guess it depends on a whole variety of different factors. But I think the first thing to do is look at, are the liability numbers significantly greater than other cities, or how we compare to the county or to other parts of the country. But we can get those numbers too. We could get those numbers from the city attorney's office. Please.
One other thing that I think would be, to the extent possible, good for us to do is to just be aware of the Charter Reform Committee and where they are going and what they are doing or what they're looking at, because we know momentum and making sure there's alignment with other sort of movements within the city could present an opportunity for our group to get something done, right, where there is overlap in terms of what we're looking at or what we could be looking at to help us focus.
Regarding our student assistants, we have student assistants
From UCLA, there are two
from Luskin. Yes,
two interns that we're going to have.
because I was wondering if we could. I'm interested in how other cities have dealt with some of these problems. I mean, I know the context is different, et cetera, and I'd be interested in some of those stories. And it would be useful to have some kind of annotated bibliography. I mean, if we could get the laundry list down to something that we could turn into questions, it would be very helpful to be able to know kind of what the ballpark is in terms of municipal innovation, problem solving, et cetera, because that would also inform where we're blocked here. I mean, part of the context is context, like we're really different than other cities on the one hand. On the other hand, there's like the story about how our civil service elimination of a job cascades into a monolith of job loss. Is like how can we? And anyways, I think it's a window into charter reform.
I do wish, by the way, that the UCLA students were able to be here today. But yes.
Hi,
You are here.
Hi, UCLA students.
I was informed that you were not here. So my apologies to you.
They are so here.
Would you like to take a moment to introduce yourselves? Maybe say a couple of words about yourself and how you see yourselves being both available and your expertise and interests when it comes to this laundry list that we have been discussing.
Yes, so my name's Golden. I am a second-year Master of Public Policy student at UCLA. I'm getting my concentration in both housing and transportation policy. And as far as my schedule, I'm going to be allocating, I'll be here every Friday in City Hall, and then I'll also be able to allocate roughly 15 hours a week to whatever research or other kinds of help that's needed of the committee, organizational, anything that you need.
Thank you. And you have a colleague here as well.
Hello, my name is Prokriti, and I'm a second-year Master of Urban and Regional Planning student at UCLA Luskin, and my concentration is climate, environment, and society. So I've worked on municipal climate finance before, budgeting, and I have managed multi-scale, multi-million-dollar projects for like international or multinational private companies. And as far as my availability, I should be able to allocate 10 hours per week until the end of December. And for the coming months, I should be able to allocate 8 hours per week.
Great. I know that there is funding that was graciously given to us by the California Community Foundation to help fund this. Do you get credit as well?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
I'm sorry?
Could you repeat that? I missed
Oh,
the
I
last
know
part.
that there was funding that was graciously granted by the California Community Foundation for this. My question is, do you get credit for this as well?
Oh, the credit? Oh,
Yes.
no. No. I think I'm just getting like the stipend, not the
Oh,
credit.
okay.
Yes, just the stipend.
Great.
Yes.
Anybody have questions for the UCLA students? Okay.
Thank you.
So in thinking about how to go forward with this, and I've been mulling this about in my head for quite a while, I think what we'd like to do ideally is to, create pairs of two to kind of be able to really dive into some of this and be able to report back for our next meeting. And I'll say a couple things. I think one is we might want to create, almost some kind of a worksheet in looking at anything that we're going to be looking at that includes some of these things that were mentioned in terms of A, what kind of problem are we seeking to solve? B, how many dollars are at stake? C, what would it take to get it done? D, what are prior attempts to have done it and why did it not happen? E, what impediments might we see in all of this? F, what how does this relate to issues of equity and impacting as many people in as positive a way as possible? Anything else anybody would want to put on that list? Oh, thank you. Feel free to add to that list. So that's part A. Part B is I'm thinking about maybe the following three groupings, but again, really want everybody's input. One would be a grouping of two on this issue of economic development and asset management. It could be phased in terms of looking at a community development corporation versus looking at real estate or looking at both simultaneously. The second would be a group to look into the financial management issues relating specifically to the city's treasury and special purpose funds and reimbursements to the general fund. And the third, which I had previously categorized as the grab bag of revenues, expenditures, efficiencies, innovations, maybe we make that into something that would be a category of what are the things that can yield money sooner rather than later, and could achieve some benefits for the city in a shorter time, and that might be about reforming parking enforcement. It might be about a proposal for delivery fees, which have been undertaken in two different states, and there's now some research on that. It might be one or two other things as well. Again, this is just kind of a proposal, and I would love everybody's feedback on this as we try to make sense of it.
I think it's a great place to start, knowing that this is going to evolve, and we may adapt it as we kind of move forward. Maybe one group yields more ideas that need more attention, and others, but see more opportunities. But I think this is a good place to start, knowing that we need to start somewhere and can't boil the ocean.
Any other thoughts?
I'm wondering if there's a flip side to the revenue generation, which is like sinkholes of waste or whatever. No, you know what I mean? Like things that are obvious, yes. Like money losers.
Correct. Look, it's either about bringing money in or finding a way to save a bunch of money. Either lead, hopefully, to similar places in terms of helping with the bottom line of the city's financial situation. So if we were to do this, and I think it's going to evolve with time, how it is that we approach this, it would be great to have, groups of two, because that will also make it sort of easier for communications to happen and for there to be collaboration. So I know there are a number of people who are interested in economic development and asset management. I think, well, truth be told, all of us are. So let me start though with that. I know that you have expressed a great interest, Jessica, especially on the real estate end. Chime in terms of the areas each of you would like to try and pair up on.
I mean, out of the three categorizations that you have put out for.
And by the way, these are not set in stone.
Yeah. I mean, again, your frame of reference for me is my baseline on how I actually start moving forward and really understanding where the where the gaps exist and where the bucket is actually leaking. And I think I don't necessarily have a favorite per se from these. If I was to choose, it would be probably looking at the treasury funds and what's actually been allocated and what the kind of parameters are related to the dollars per line item. But I'm also very curious about trying to set precedent and get the CEO's report on what he had stated related to the proposal for evaluation that he mentioned. Because I think for me, that's going to give a clear line of sight on I think really unearthing some other things that I might want to prioritize in terms of work.
So you might be the one to, as it were, develop that matrix in terms of, what problem we're seeking to solve, what are the dollars at stake, et cetera, and looking at a number of these things and maybe focusing first on what are things that could more immediately, not that anything is immediate, but more, somewhat more immediately help in terms of the current financial picture of the city. Am I stating that correctly?
Yeah, lower hanging fruit.
Lower hanging fruit. Okay, I like that term. Okay, good. I'm going to steal it from you.
Is what you're talking about the area that was formerly known as Grab Bag?
I suppose so.
Number
yes.
3.
I think it's a much more elegant description. Yes.
This is also more feasible. I'm kind of interested in that as well.
Okay, so, all right. So we've got that as, let's say, tentatively as Derek and Gilda.
So even though 800 special needs fund kind of makes my head hurt, I think
you and me
I think
both.
Going into the Treasury would be interesting to take a look at. Yeah, I'll take that on. The other thing too, back to my financial goal, if we just looked at this page and said in savings or revenue, we wanted to get us back to 10%, basically it's $400 million. So if we can find $400 million, that's it.
Although we do have to ask ourselves the question of whether, when you look at the goals that the city has, both short and long term, and of the pressing needs that we have, you look at issues of housing, or if you look at public safety, or whatever it might be, right? Or resiliency, is the top priority now about getting from 5% to 10%, which would be certainly good financial management, but is that necessarily the top priority? And is 10% the magic number, or is it one that just has sort of been discussed? But ideally, you are correct.
I'm an old military guy, so I always feel that's kind of beyond my pay grade in terms of those bigger questions. If I have a goal And if I have an issue and I'm looking to, I'm going that I can get, it's low hanging fruit, it's a number, it's clear, it's doable, and I can quantify it, then I can do it. And if it follows the overarching values and direction the city wants to head in, all the better. But I'm looking at the name of the committee, and it's the finance and budget. So that's kind of what we're looking at, the finance and budget. So it makes it clearer and more accessible for me, at least.
There's this page in the report that we didn't go over. No, the reserve. But the argument for 10% of the reserve being, stuff changes, you can't predict everything, contingency, right? There's another page that talks about economic risks and uncertainty, January wildfires, tourism boycotts, federal cuts, disruptive immigration enforcement deportations, erratic tariff application. There's so many reasons to have a higher contingency fund at this particular historical moment in this city, in this country right now, that I'm with you.
It's almost like all of the goals can be put in the context of this is protecting or advancing. Agreed.
Well, I know this has been one of my great obsessions for a long time, dare I say. And I would love to be able to partner with you on this. And I think it has such great potential. And so we look at the issue of then economic development and asset management. So on that, we have one, and the question is, does somebody else want to jump into a second pair, or do I pair up with you on that? I'm open to all suggestions.
I don't see many raising their hands.
I'm very interested in that too, and it kind of overlaps in terms of asset management. So, and I think we're across the street from each other, so it makes it even easier.
Okay, so interestingly enough, in the little Post-it notes that I made to myself before this meeting with the people who I thought would go into particular pairs, you actually matched up with my Post-it notes.
That's why you're our chair.
I think we want to talk about, frequency of meetings and about what deliverables would be. Anybody want to share their thoughts on this?
Practically speaking, going into the holidays, and my wife's family is from Pennsylvania. I'll be spending from mid to early January there. My availability will be a little bit, but definitely by Zoom with whoever I'm working with. I can do that, but it just for in-person meetings, not in the next few weeks, it'd be very difficult. After the next few weeks, it'd be very difficult.
The pair meetings don't necessarily have to be in person, so they can be, through other means as well, and still comply with Brown Act regulations. This is the kind of committee that could be meeting once a month. It could be once every 2 weeks. It could be once every 3 weeks. Depends on people's schedules and availability, and also wanted to get a sense of what day of the week. Originally, we were talking about sort of Friday afternoons. For this meeting, it became a Monday afternoon, but thoughts on that?
For me personally, Mondays and Fridays work best in terms of like the availability of time.
Okay.
I'm going to be stepping down from I'm also in the county's Human Relations Commission, and so that structure is typically once a month with breakout subcommittees for other specific areas of focus. So my recommendation would be a similar format, once a month for the whole group, and then we can meet subsequently, maybe a couple times a month, for any kind of subcommittee activities that we have.
Okay.
Is it possible, or maybe we don't have enough time, but is it possible to just get a kind of a little idea of what we expect from each other for the next meeting? So we picked these topic areas. Do we expect us to have a preliminary definition of what it means to us? And then maybe a preliminary scope of work for the first quarter, like this is what we think will get done in the first quarter, don't hold your breath.
It's a very good question, and I want to put a pin on it for just one moment, because the one of the things before we leave that I really wanted to get instruction from, I think the clerk is probably the best one to give us instruction on this, is how we properly comply with the Brown Act in terms of communications, in terms of, emails, in terms of texts, in terms of how many people can you communicate with in that fashion. Can you do sort of serial calls to various people? What are the rules to make sure that we stay absolutely in compliance with?
Oh, he's in charge.
So okay. Please.
Even has a
I'm sorry to have.
That's all right. I'm not used to the buttons from the council meeting. Stefan Falba with the city attorney's office.
Okay, great.
So there are 5 of you. So the threshold when you hit 3 people communicating, either at once or serially, like through an email chain, is 3. So you can't hit 3. So having groups of 2 is fine. Those would be proper ad hoc non-Brown Act meetings, given that you have only 2 people and you're meeting for a short period to basically do a particular task. So you listed out those things A to F on various topics. So it's like, go out, figure out what the problem is, try to analyze these things, and come back and report to the commission. You can then reassign other things later on, but that will be Brown Act compliant. I would just advise the 2 people who are on a particular group, please don't reach out to a third person to discuss anything, because then you'll hit the magic number of 3 and you've got a Brown Act meeting. 3 people from here.
Right. So does that mean, just for point of clarification, let's say 2 of them meet, and then they want, if one of the 2 wants to say report back to me, permissible? Not permissible.
Not really permissible. I mean, if it's report back to you in that we've written up a report, we'd like to send it to the commission, here it is, that we're going to agendize it, that's fine. To substantively talk to you about it offline, not in a meeting, would be a problem, because you're part of the 3 as a member of the body. So it's really an opportunity for 2 people in their little bubble to do their assigned work and report back to this body with ideas. And then again, in light of what this body says, you can send other people out, maybe the same 2 people. Here are some other topics we want you to report back on and think about, right? So the answer is, to your question, no, they shouldn't be substantively discussing stuff with you outside, other than we've got our report ready, please put it on the agenda. That would obviously be fine. You have to know when to agendize things, but not to have a substantive discussion. Sorry, the Brown Act is designed to be complicated.
Yes. So, getting back to sort of what Gilda was suggesting in terms of kind of, reporting back, how do we do that in a way that is in compliance?
Are these meetings for that?
I'm sorry?
Are these meetings for that? Like we do some work and then we come back here and we report back, public meeting, prefaced by maybe distribution of some material or not?
But also now, if there is a report that, let's say, a pair has, that they want to agendize, they can send that to the clerk,
They can send,
and then we all get copies of it as part of something that is agendized.
correct. The point at which a majority of the body, so that's to say 3 people, have a copy of the report is the point at which we would also make it public. So when your agenda packets go out, those things usually will be part of the packet and the public can see it at the same time. If you want to send it to the clerk, the body of 2, send it to the clerk for agendizing, and the clerk can hold it or not per your instructions for whatever
So it
period
could then
of time is
be
appropriate.
sort of, as it were, communicated to us as a group if it's part of being agendized.
If it's part of so I'll put it as mechanics of procedural scheduling issues and stuff, obviously you and the clerk are free to work together, and you're free to work with the other 2 insofar as they're telling you, hey, it's time to put this on the agenda, we have something to report.
Got it.
And just to add, generally the committee chair is responsible for setting agenda, and you can work with Mr. Turner, Charles Turner, Councilmember Yaroslavsky's office, and I can work with Mr. Turner to set that agenda and have it published so that the entire committee can meet and discuss each item that's brought forth. So you, sir, Mr. Galperin, can present the topics that you would like to have discussed for each respective committee meeting and present it to Mr. Turner, and we'll work together to publish that agenda in compliance with the Brown Act.
Understood. Any questions?
Just to clarify, so that could be Charles could be our touchstone for getting things agendized, for complying with the Brown Act. So if our little committee comes up with a report, wants to have it on the agenda, we can send it to Charles, and
Yes, that's fine.
and he can coordinate with the clerk, and right?
Yes, that's correct.
I mean, it's obviously the chairman
Life is good.
of the commission who's making the ultimate decision as to what's on the agenda, but I assume that Mr. Galperin would work closely with CD5 staff and the clerk to work out what you want on the agenda.
Great. I think the question then is, I mean, there are holidays here that are all coming upon us. At the same time, I want to make sure that we don't lose momentum, or at least start off at a very slow rate of momentum. So the question is, would we meet a month from now? Or the question is, are people willing to perhaps, work on these things and commit to coming back in, 2 weeks or something less than a month? So
Not January.
Ideally 2 meetings before the year's end.
Not January.
I'm sorry?
Not January. January, my favorite month.
So what was the question? I'm sorry. A launch for January.
We were having trouble scheduling this. I was wondering how we would schedule something over the holidays.
Maybe we just have our pairs, dyads, whatever you want to call them, meet a few times before we actually launch and report back a bit in January.
That'll be our momentum. Our momentum will be our little groups meeting.
I will concede I'm impatient. I want all the answers by tomorrow.
Yes, but we could hold your hands and calm you down.
Were you?
That works. I think, or my view is, before we come back and present, we're going to need more than one meeting with our subgroup to sort of flesh some of this out. I think that's unfortunately probably realistic, rather than meeting again and being ready to meet. But
So
I think
we'll have
I think our
substance.
full group meeting on person on a monthly basis, on a Monday or a Friday, with multiple meetings in between, works well. And we're good to invite, are we going to assign or ask each one of the UCLA to a group to support our reporting? And so
Well, you got two.
we have 3 groups.
You have 3 groups and 2 people. So open to suggestions on that.
What if we wait till we have something to present to each other and to them? you know, so that they know
Well,
what the ballpark is?
I don't think we want to waste the opportunity to
No,
put them
don't,
to work
15 hours a week.
now,
Yeah.
and get them working now. Um,
In, in this pre-session, should they, I don't know if this is going to be a strain during these times, to have both of them be part of all our meetings, and then we clarify focus in January? Or is that too much? It feels like too much.
Mr. City Attorney.
So you can include either or both of them in your meetings as you wish.
I'm
You can
sorry.
include the clerks in any of your meetings, either of them or both of them in your meetings as you wish. I would just remind the clerks or the UCLA staff to not spread information between the groups, which could lead to a serial meeting and a Brown Act problem. So keep yourselves in bubbles within the groups.
they're up for a reality check here.
Yeah,
Please.
I guess that would depend on really when you're going to be meeting, because we're also dealing with classes as well.
Right.
But if we can provide our schedules to you all as well, and
Oh, that would be very helpful, actually.
yeah,
Yes.
and then you can see if you want us to. I'd be happy to come to any of the sub meetings.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Yes, I could share my schedule with you all, and I guess that would be easier.
Great.
Make a comment.
Yes, please.
So, Charles Turner from Constitution 5. So, the fellows are, as you all know, sort of working through our office. So, I think the best way to facilitate it is you all have assignments or questions or feedback or thoughts for them. You can communicate that through me. Same as for departments. If you have requests for departments, like the reports that the CLA or CAO was speaking about earlier, those are things that you guys can talk to me about, what we would like for you guys to talk to me about when we make the request. Just to be always the chair, always getting involved and know how information is flowing and going. But Golden and Procreity and I have actually had these conversations that you're having right now before. We talked about if they should be paired with you as individuals and sort of like you, two of them, like one of them staff, three of you, one of them staff, two of you, something to that effect. So no matter where you move, what you're working on at the time, they'll be staffing with you, or another model like we were discussing today, more so staffing based on the committee. But again, it comes back down to timing. Really, I think in an ideal world, they would be able to come to all of you all's meeting to take notes or the follow-ups immediately. But it may not be always possible. So if you all let me know, you can write them directly, but you can copy me as well. But I would, at any rate, just keep me in the loop when you're communicating with them. But also, but it's up to you all how you would want to. They can split by committee, by something else. But they, in terms of your meeting, they are free all day. Neither one of them have classes on Fridays, which is why we were pushing for a Friday date. And they left UCLA, came here today for this meeting. So just Friday is the best date for meetings for them.
Great.
So anyway,
Yep.
I just wanted to point that I'll be involved in terms of getting you all what you need from them and from departments as well.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Charles, so can you share maybe with us their schedule? And I mean, I would be happy to just work around making sure we have one of you in our meeting, just right out of the gate.
Yeah, I was going to make the same suggestion. But two things. One, I think we at least landed on Friday. I think I heard. So I just want to codify that. But the second thing too is in the place of being equitable. We have assignments, at least what we think is our topics. It'd be great to actually get their feedback on where they find value in terms of their own expertise and their interest points to then make the assignments.
Yep.
We review all of the areas just for they're taking notes.
So maybe the thing to do is, at least initially, that the requests of what's going to be done from the UCLA students will be done through you, Charles. And at some point we can see whether it makes sense to pair them with a specific person or a specific pair, as it were. Is that the consensus?
Yes. It will ultimately be up to you all what you think works best. But in terms of the communicating that and next steps, go through me. But what you actually want to do and how you want to use them.
Mhm.
They are at your disposal.
Okay.
The assignments.
And I think we're generally thinking about, can we say, once a month at, 1 p.m. on Fridays, but we'd also like to have maybe a special meeting at some point that can be an evening meeting that can include more members of the community and particularly, as was mentioned, the neighborhood council budget advocates, which I was one of them many, many, many moons ago, and would definitely want to schedule a time that's going to work for them as a group as well.
Ron, could you email us that little list you made of A through F something or other? That list of
So
the summary of our discussion.
maybe you're the better one to answer this question.
So I think Charles can probably, or the clerk either, can
Oh no!
can
Oh,
email
that's a
you
Brown Act thing. Okay.
individual.
Oh my
He'll,
God.
he'll probably BCC you all, so you're not accidentally hitting reply. Also, yes, can easily provide that information to you all.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there are going to be minutes of this meeting that we have for approval at the next meeting.
I'm going to take it back to my management just to discuss the resources that are available for this committee. But yes, we can definitely have something available for the committee's action. In terms of what form will the
I'd
communication
like to
come?
keep track of these kinds of things.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And of course, the meeting is recorded, so we have that as well.
I'm sorry?
I assume the meeting is recorded, so we have that as well.
Yes, correct.
Yes, it will be recorded.
An AI summary.
Very easy.
In terms of a summary of today, there are some immediate items that would be helpful for voting and appropriate to work on right now. So I know, clearly, you said the points A through F, and maybe we could just run through what the next steps are, deliverables or action items. You all can say that again right now on the record, and then they'll take it down, and then they can prepare it, and I'll send it to you.
Okay, great. So do you need me to repeat what that A through F was, or we have that already?
You have it already? Okay. Also, we have the recording, so if you don't, it's up to you.
Okay.
But we have the recording as well.
Okay, great. So in terms of what you would expect or hope to come back with a month from now? Or January, sorry. January.
I'm just going to throw something out there for the
Please.
sake of discussion. So we articulated A through F. One was what problem we're solving. So maybe we establish what problems we're looking at within our context and then maybe we do that evaluation by topic in terms of what we think may be the most worthwhile in terms of either largest revenue savings, ability to get done quickly, and as many as we think are worth presenting to the group, we do so. And if the group likes it, or maybe there's some analysis done even before the meeting on filling in those, what would it take, what would be potentially the revenue or financial impact.
Yes, and in the interim, Charles, if you would be the one who would be able to, let's say, get from the CLA as well as from the UCLA students, sort of a digest of previous attempts to do X, Y, and Z, along with links to what those council files or reports might have been. That would be very helpful. Anything else we should be, Charles, that I should be saying in terms of what deliverables are going to be for the next meeting? So meeting frequency is going to be once a month. I think we're talking about Fridays at 1 p.m. So looking at our calendars here. I don't think that you have in mind the 2nd of January. So.
I'm sorry, I'm out of town on the 9th.
All right.
Here we go.
Do we want to wait till the 16th, though? Now, is Mondays a possibility as well? Like if we decide to do it on...
Mondays work for me.
Oh. So Fridays work for you, but not Mondays. Is that right?
It's just hard. I can make it with enough time. I can make anything work.
Well, if we do Friday, then the earliest Friday that we'd be able to make it, which everybody would be present, would be the 16th. Are people comfortable with that date, or?
Have a work retreat that.
Ah!
I know, I'm sorry, Bright.
All right.
9th and the 16th, I have work.
All right, so propose a date.
It unfortunately doesn't. I could see if I could leave early. I would need to get approval.
The 12th could work if we wanted to start on a Monday.
I can do
Okay.
the 12th.
I can do the 12th.
Then maybe we could start
And
on
then,
Friday.
yeah, sorry.
All right, so we're looking at the first coming back together again on the 12th, and then perhaps thereafter on the 6th of February. And if that works, then we might just do, the first Friday of the month.
And you're talking about 1 o'clock for the.
I'm sorry?
1 o'clock for the meetings? Just
1 o'clock, correct.
Excellent.
And I think we have to figure out, do we do it in this room or do we do it, in one of the sort of, conference/hearing rooms? This is beautiful and it's grand, but it's not so easy to hear or to see.
The acoustics are bad. It's obviously up to you on what rooms are available, but I'm sure the clerk's office can work to try to pick a room. So I don't think you need to pick the room right now, but yeah, I can hear myself echoing as it's going.
I mean, it's beautiful and it's grand, but
it is a beautiful
hard.
room, but it's hard to hear. But there are many rooms where we have committee hearings.
Yes.
I would be shocked if we can't find a room for you when you want it.
Great.
What was the date in February?
Monday, the 12th at 1 o'clock.
January, that's January.
Oh, sorry, February 6th.
February 6th.
Yeah.
Correct.
And the 12th, I have a hard stop after 2 hours.
All right, my apologies that this is gone, but I wanted to keep it shorter, but we did have a lot of ground to cover. So I promise you that we will stick to that, hopefully as best as we can henceforth.
So if I can just repeat, so then you're planning on meeting once a month, typically at 1 o'clock on Fridays, but the next meeting or the next two will be Monday, January 12 at 1 o'clock. You have a hard stop time, Commissioner, at 3. And then the meeting after that will be February 6th at 1 o'clock. Rooms to be determined and how the schedule proceeds after that to be determined, but likely once a month on Fridays, starting at 1.
Correct, yes. Anything else that we have not covered or that somebody wants to raise that we should cover? Any loose end that I have not tied up? I'll just conclude by saying that I'm really grateful to everybody that is in this room, the commissioners for volunteering their time, the staff, very grateful to the appointing authorities, that being Councilmember Yaroslavsky and Blumenfield and Harris Dawson, and very much looking forward to working with all of you and to doing some good for our city and realizing some of the opportunities that are out there. And with that, I will ask if there might be a motion to conclude the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All right. And I think we're all in agreement. There we are.